Hello, and I'm Stephanie Johnson, and welcome to this video, and this is called Help Me, I'm a Parent. And today's segment is going to be focusing on parents who have children, particularly the ages 0 to 5, and in particular 2 to 5. Now, what authority do I come to you with any information that will be of any assistance? Well, have a try, see if you like it. But I'm combining my personal as well as my professional 18 years of clinical practice working with children, traumatised children, and children who come from separated families and children in crisis. So I come from that background, a personal background of having a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and being a mother and a woman, as well as having 18 years of clinical experience with traumatised children. So this is called Help Me, I'm a Parent. And I want us to have the theme today of the old Jesuit priest saying, give me a child till 7 and I'll show you the man. And what that old saying actually means is that the most critical formative years is 0 to 7, where the children are learning about morals and values, ethics and reasoning, learning about empathy, sharing, taking turns, socialisation, gross fine motor skills, and rapid learning intellectually, cognition, is occurring between 0 to 7. And these early milestone years, researchers are finding out more and more in the most contemporary ways that 0 to 7 is the most essential time to get your most important critical learning, your reading, your writing, and morals and values and empathy down pat. In those critical years, this is what needs to be formed. And if in those years they're not formed, then children are going to lag behind. So 0 to 7 is really important. And often behaviour interferes with learning. So we really need to get on top of the behaviour early. Okay. So a lot of our theories around child psychology and child development in particular actually comes from a behaviourist psychologist in America for the 1950s and 60s, and his name was Erik Erikson, and he developed a theory called the developmental life cycle of a human being, and he particularly focused on 0 to 18 years, and we want to particularly focus on 0 to 7. So there's lots of mastery skills a child needs to acquire by 7, and a lot of them is around negotiating, around sharing, taking turns, around ethics and reasoning, even working out socially how to lie to be socially acceptable in peer groups, learning about reading and writing, fine and gross motor skills, cognition. They're also learning about morals and values and empathy. Very important times. And you know, where do the most formative years come from? Who are they being modelled by from 0 to 5 in particular? Well, it has to be the parents. Now, in Australia, in our Western capitalist society, we have a mentality here that it's down to the parents with sole responsibility for their children, which is entirely true. But where is the support for parents? We used to have that years ago, and you still have it in Muslim and Arab societies, and often in Asian societies and African societies, where the extended family actually lives with you, so you get a lot of support from you know, your mother and your sisters. Well, often in Anglo-Saxon British societies that Australia traditionally has come from, it's very individualised. So often as parents, we're quite isolated, lonely, and we're quite often rearing children on our own. So today I want to focus particularly on mothers that might be particularly on your own and you're working with children 0 to 5, particularly 2-year-olds to 5-year-olds. I want to focus on that today. And you know, you're all doing the best you can, and I've got some ideas here, and take them away. If they work, great. If they don't, that's okay too. I'm not selling you anything. Yeah, I've got a book to flog off, but you don't have to buy the book. That's okay too. So what I also want to say is, in our Western capitalist society, particularly in Australia, I've noticed a trend in the last 20 years that parenting and mothering is actually being degraded. And I want to say to you today that parenting is the hardest skill and responsibility to do. And being a mother is really important because, unfortunately, it's still, the research shows us that the mother does most of the primary caregiving in the home, particularly for those early milestone years of the small children. So I want to particularly say the mothers that often been undermined and devalued in society, and I want to say that that being parent and being a mother is the most important job in the world. And we need to give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back. And okay, maybe we're not getting accolades like we used to at work. Maybe the stuff that we're working on with our children is quite hidden, unseen, because it's going on in your own home, and there's no one to say, oh, great job, Susie, getting your child to read before the age of 5, or getting your child toilet trained by the age of 2.5, well done. There's no one there giving you a pat on the back. But I want to give you a pat on the back, metaphorically speaking, saying, you know, parenting is a hard thing to do, particularly as a mother, and particularly if you're the sole carer for your child. And you know, this information is for everyone. You might be a carer, you might be a grandparent who's giving significant care to a loved one. So the most important thing I want to say to you, we're going to give a few tips away today, but the most important thing, particularly for those 2 to 5 year olds, is this: be consistent. You don't have to have lots of money, you don't have to be rich, you don't even have to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of time. Be consistent. So no matter how you feel, don't want to get up in the morning, or you've had a relationship breakup, or a personal tragedy, or you've got PMT, or you're not feeling well, you had a big night out the night before, you've got a hangover. Despite all that, you've got to get out of bed and you've got to be a mother, because children are number 1, adults are second. Children are vulnerable, they didn't ask to be born, so we need to be child-centered, child-focused. So number 1 is we need to get out of bed despite how we feel, and number 2, we need to be consistent. There's some great books out there. There's Steve Biddulph, Raising Boys, there's Dr. Christopher Green, Toddler Taming, and I could go on and on and on about all the smorgasbords of books out there. But you don't need a book to be consistent. Most important thing, it costs you nothing, but sometimes it costs you everything, particularly if you're tired, particularly if you're unwell, particularly if you're emotionally not good at the moment. But it will pay off later if you be consistent. The other most important thing is for your children, particularly for the sole caregiver, and they're particularly quite young, is be stable. You know, crisis is a solution from one crisis to the next, not helpful for the stability of the child, the emotional stability of the child. So be stable in a crisis. Number 3 is be reliable. If you say you're going to do something, carry it out. If you promise your child you're going to take it to the movies, you take it to the movies. You say you're going to turn up for childcare to pick up your child at a certain time, you pick it up at that time. You mean what you say and you do what you say. So in regard to parenting, if you give out a threat to your child, if you do this, this is what's going to happen, this is a consequence, you need to carry it through. So those consequences need to be realistic, meaningful and timely. So that's a couple of tips for you today, is be consistent, be stable, be reliable, mean what you say, carry it through, make the consequences consistent and meaningful and relevant and appropriate for the age of the child. And the other couple of things that's really important is be safe. Sometimes we get really, really angry, and sometimes as parents we get out of control. That's when you need time out to remove yourself from the situation. Because once you're out of control, the child's won. Okay? They can see that you're out of control, and they can see that then they might be able to emotionally manipulate you now, because they can see that your emotions are out of control and they're able to manipulate you, and therefore they may be able to try to control you. Okay? There's no perfect parenting. We're all doing the best we can. No child came with a manual, but being abusive is not the way, and being abusive is unlawful in Australia. And it doesn't help. It makes things worse, not better. So if you are angry, you need to remove yourself from the situation. Okay. So you need to be safe around your children, stable, consistent, be reliable, be trustworthy. Again, say you're going to promise your son you're going to play cricket with him, you play cricket with him. You mean what you say, you follow through on your threats, give appropriate consequence, and the other more important thing is have fun with children. You know, I see a lot of families in my clinical practice and they don't have fun. They lost the sense of having fun as a family. So go out and do something fun with your children, yeah? Try and catch them out being good rather than always trying to catch them out being bad. But the message I want to leave for you today is this. Parenting is the most important thing. It's been undervalued, undermined in society, especially our Western capitalist society. We often parent alone. But traditionally, we will have extended families, so parents are really doing it tough, they're quite isolated. But the most important thing is be consistent, be safe, be reliable, be stable, be trustworthy, be fun. That's Stephanie Johnson for Help Me, I'm a Parent.